On the day after Target announced they were closing 9 stores because they supposedly lost something like $1.6 billion in shoplifting. The next day, the National Association of Retail organizations came out and said, we're not seeing any numbers, any big bump. And I think we were just sort of speculating that this is people in the C-suite protecting decisions that they made and excusing their own sort of mismanagement of stores and predictions, particularly going into COVID, as to where, places would gentrify and where they wouldn't. And Popular Info did a great piece on this because everybody hears this. And I know I've had conversation with 2 different people who are not big news consumers, but we're aware of this. And we're like, eesh. And I'm like, I don't think that's right. Because there is just even the East Harlem one didn't make sense. Yep. So an analysis by Popular Information found that one of the stores that Target is closing in East Harlem found that the area surrounding the plaza at 517 East 117th Street has had fewer incidents of shoplifting reported this year than other Target locations in Upper Manhattan. This is all New York Police Department complaint data. So in other words, if this Target was being closed because it's due to rampant crime, you would see that in the police data. This analysis includes incidents of petty larceny from a store, grand larceny from a store, and robberies that began as shoplifting. Comparatively, the 1-block area around the Target located at 150 86th Street had 327 incidents reporting of shoplifting in the same period versus the 201 at the one that they're closing. Meanwhile, Target plans to open another location about a mile away from the location it's going to close on the East River, which seems really odd if it was an issue of crime. They just guessed wrong at where the gentrification would happen.
It's corporate PR. It's corporate PR, then that is breathlessly reported by the press.
Totally. And there's no data.
Yeah.
There's no numbers. Popular Info. And they went through a couple places where they could find data in the Seattle.
This is also just like the power of some of these trade associations, and they write about this in the piece, the National Retail Federation. The fact that they have been allowed to frame the conversation around crime in this country, I would say, I think that they have more power than people realize, particularly in cities, and as do restaurant associations and hotel chains and places like that want to make it about the undesirables as opposed to, so they can make as much money as humanly possible, as opposed to the effect that their presence and boxing out certain affordable housing and making things unlivable for people, the effect that that's having on the communities. They don't want that to be the conversation.
Yeah, this is also going on in D.C. Some D.C. journalists are posting pictures or videos of the store in Columbia Heights, a CVS, being ransacked apparently. And one you hear from people that live in D.C. and it's like, yeah, actually that one's mismanaged. There's another CVS nearby that's fine. But you look at actually CVS, last year they announced a plan for $10 billion of stock buybacks. So if you're worried about crime, maybe you should reinvest some of that into security. I don't know. And then this Ohio Capital Journal article on CVS spoke to employees that asked to remain anonymous, but they went on record to say that short staffing at CVS is not always due to lack of qualified people, but that it's a conscious policy imposed because managers are getting bonuses. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, well, let's have all this stuff stocked absolutely like and not have any sort of security invested in to this sort of thing, and then just let people ransack it. And then when we don't protect like the things that we're supposedly selling, we just ask for more cops and say we like don't look at
Cost
us.
saving for them too, because then they don't have to, as you say, they don't have to pay for security.
If you need cops, if you need Uncle Sam to protect your deodorant and pharmacy and the razor blades, then Uncle Sam should just sell those stuff themselves.
And again, the root of people stealing deodorant, baby food, formula, diapers,
Or even expensive stuff to resell.
is not some pathology. I'm going to get mad. It is the fact that people are desperate. Desperate. Okay? So that should be obvious to people, but instead we have fear-mongering about black people on one of the biggest news channels in the country.
And this is the other thing I think that people don't sort of like, casual observers of this don't contemplate. Every time now there is a violent crime committed, not every time, but the number of violent crimes now that are available on video
Yep.
relative to what it was 20 years ago is, I mean, I can't even, I don't even know how to quantify it.
Yeah.
Like, like the stories of, and certainly like, I've been living in New York for 30 years, almost 29 years. But been coming down to New York, as an adult for longer than that. And there's always stories of somebody coming out of a bar getting kicked in the head and dying, or getting stabbed. I mean, obviously, it's horrible. It is. I mean, they exist outside of cities too. But one thing that is clear is that you're far more likely to be caught on video in a city now than you would be in a rural situation. So we get a unbalanced view, literally view, of where a violent crime takes place. Mm-hmm. And then we also just don't have the ability to process how much crime exists relative to our ability to see it. This stuff happened 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But it would just get reported in the paper and there was no video, and so nobody would talk about it and spread it around. I mean, this is...
It didn't just happen 20 years ago. It happened way more 20 years ago. It happened way more 30 years ago. It happened way more 40 years ago. Crime's been on a steep decline for decades at this point.
I mean, I'm just going to read. This is from visualcapitalist.com. I don't know that website, but just a closer look at the violent crime rate per 1,000 residents list. Bessemer, Alabama, #1. Monroe, Louisiana. Saginaw, Michigan. Memphis, Tennessee. Detroit, Michigan. Birmingham, Alabama. Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Little Rock, Arkansas. Alexandria, Louisiana. So when all these like sort of red state, like DeSantis, Jacksonville, a lot of crime there. When they go do these publicity stunts in these blue cities, you know that they don't care about any of those victims in those places.
And also in those places, lowest minimum wage in the country.